Thank you for staying with us. The news begins with Comfort Emerson, the passenger accused of assaulting airline officials aboard an Ibom air flight from Uyo to Lagos, who has been charged to court and remanded in Kirikiri Correctional Center in Lagos. Tunde Moshood, Special Advisor on Media and Communications to the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, confirmed the development in a post on his official X handle on Monday. His statement comes amid warnings by the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority that stricter enforcement actions will be taken against passengers engaging in disruptive conduct, which has been on the rise in Nigerian airports. Now, Emerson, who was on board the Uyo to Lagos flight, had in a viral video repeatedly slapped a purser with Ibom aircraft after she was allegedly told to switch off her phone before takeoff. The airline today banned the passenger from flying its airline after she was found assaulting one of the crew members of their aircraft. Ibom Air said the incident began before takeoff from Uyo when Emerson refused to comply with safety procedures requiring passengers to switch off their mobile phones. According to the airline, a fellow passenger seated beside her switched off the phone, sparking a verbal tirade. The courier said that upon arrival in Lagos, Emerson confronted the purser, who had earlier instructed her to switch off her phone and also physically assaulted her. It also maintained that the passenger attempted to forcibly remove a fire extinguisher to use as a weapon, an act they described as an intention to damage and ground the aircraft. Ibom Air added that her behavior posed a serious threat to the safety of its crew, passengers and aircraft. This development follows a similar recent incident involving Fuji musician King Wasiu Ayinde Marshal, also known as Kwam1 or K1 the Ultimate, who attempted to stop a Valley-jet aircraft from taking off after being deboarded. Now, reacting to this development, Atiku's aide has quickly responded, that is Atiku's spokesperson Paul Ibe. He condemned the assault by the crew of Ibom Air and airport security officials on a passenger, Comfort Emerson. Well, you know that in the viral video, she repeatedly slapped an Air Ibom crew member, where she was allegedly told to switch off her phone before the plane could take off. But she bluntly refused to switch off her phone. Paul Ibe, who went to his X account to react, faulted the decision to assault Comfort, while Fuji singer Ayinde Marshal, also known as Kwam1, was allowed to walk off the tarmac in similar circumstances. Now, according to Atiku's aide, the recent airport controversy is the reason the authorities should be deliberate about nipping bad behavior in the board. He said the assault of Ibom Air crew and airport security officials on Sunday by an Ibom Air passenger, Miss Comfort Emerson, is the reason why we need to deliberately nip bad behavior in the bud. There is a temptation to hail the airport security officials of acting swiftly and removing the unruly passenger from the aircraft and the tarmac. But the question arises, why was Kwam1 also not bundled out of the tarmac in the same manner when he, in a hostage-taking manner, obstructed Valley-jet airline operations in Abuja last week? Maybe it was because Comfort is not a friend of the president. This is the reason why the authorities should have made an example of Kwam1 to avert copycats like passenger Comfort from reading a Kwam2 scenario. The question is, when will Kwam1 be arraigned in court along with Comfort? The world, especially the International Aviation Body, is watching at FKMO, at MA Aviation Nigeria, at Nigeria CAA. Now, moving on to Ogun State, the government there today sealed off Asoledoru Court, the conference hotels and its annex in the Shagamu government reserved area belonging to former governor and senator representing Ogun East Senatorial District at the National Assembly, Otumba Gbenga Daniel. The sealer followed a notice to quit issued to the management of the properties barely 3 days ago. According to the notice issued on Friday, the buildings contravene the Ogun State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law and its subsidiary regulations. The notice ordered the owners or occupants to produce all relevant planning permits within 24 hours of face demolition. Officials of the Ogun State Planning and Development Permit Authority, Shagamu Zonal Office, stormed the premises at about mid-morning, pasting fresh sealing and demolition notices on the gates and walls of the multi-billion naira facilities. The sealing and demolition notices bore the same date and were pasted at the same time. The sealing notice dated August 11, 2025. Also, while the demolition notice dated August 11, 2025. Recall that the former governor had accused Dapo Abiodun of using the Ogun State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law to demolish his buildings that were legally constructed before the law came into existence. Daniel insisted that move by the present administration is not only politically motivated, but also a blatant disregard for due process and rule of law. Now, under security matters, the residents of Yelwata, Benue State today blocked the federal highway from Makurdi to Abuja, protesting the killing of 3 people. Suspected armed terrorists were reported to have invaded the community as early as 7 a.m., shot 3 people dead and 3 others got injured. The residents were said to have blocked the federal highway with the capsules, preventing the movement of vehicles. A youth leader from the community, Matthias Archie, said that the armed herders launched an attack around 7 a.m. this morning, killed 3 people, injured others. He said, and I quote, "The Fulanis again attacked our community Yelwata this morning around 7 a.m. and were shooting sporadically. They killed 3 people, injured 3 others. Right now, the security advisor to the governor and chairman of Guma local government area are there to assess the situation." However, at the time of this report, the spokesperson of Benue State Command, DSP Udeme Edet, is yet to have received the report as of 7 a.m. this morning. Also, no fewer than 200 people, if you will recall, were killed in a midnight attack on the same community on June 13. While in Borno State, many residents of Kinawa under the Gwoza local government area of Borno State have fled to Cameroon following an attack by suspected Boko Haram terrorists who killed scores of soldiers and abducted a schoolgirl, Aisha Mohammed. Correspondents disclosed that it lasted 4 hours and it occurred on Saturday night on the 9th of August 2025. Also, the chairman, Kinawa Development Association, explained that the terrorists burnt houses, shops and vehicle. He called on the federal government to deploy more troops to the area to prevent further attacks. Local sources said that the kidnapped schoolgirl is yet to regain freedom as at the time this report was being filed. However, many families have been displaced while some are still taking refuge across the border villages in Cameroon. Now back to the airport situation. The national president of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, Musiliu Akinsoya, also known as MC Oluomo, has pleaded with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to show mercy to the Fuji music legend Wasiu Ayinde Marshal over the alleged breach of aviation regulations which disrupted a value jet flight. As you do know, the 68-year-old musician was violated air travel rules while boarding ValueJet Airlines during the morning service. While following the incident, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus, placed the musician on a 6-month no-fly list for all domestic and international flights pending investigation. However, reacting via his Instagram profile, MC Oluomo then begged the President and the Aviation Minister to temper justice with mercy. Meanwhile, on the political scene, the senator representing Ogun East in the National Assembly, Gbenga Daniel, has dismissed the reports about the ill health of Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Well, Gbenga Daniel, former Ogun State governor, described as untrue a media report alleging that Akpabio has been hospitalized in an unnamed hospital in London. This was made known in a statement today by the Special Assistant of Media to Akpabio, Jackson Udom. The chairman, Senate Committee on Navy, stated that he had a stopover in London to inform the Senate President on his planned return to Nigeria to partake in the August 16th by-election to fill the vacant seat of the Ikenne Shagamu Remo North Federal Constituency of Ogun State, which was declared vacant following the death of former Deputy Whip of the House of Representatives, Honorable Adewumi Ononuga. Responding, Akpabio thanked Gbenga Daniel for coming to inform him of the August 16th by-election and his decision to return home to be part of it. On his purported sickness, Akpabio said, "If you listen to the social media, you will go to war." Now, still on Sikh-related matters, Abdulaziz, the senior assistant to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on print media, has dismissed a report by the International Center for Investigative Reporting alleging that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is sick. The ICIR had quoted unnamed sources claiming that the president's medical team was preparing to fly him abroad for urgent treatment. According to the report, Tinubu had been bedridden for several days, leading to his absence from key state functions. However, speaking with the BBC Hausa Twitter earlier today, Abdulaziz described the claims as false and misleading. According to him, he says there is no scintilla of truth in that report. The president is currently in his office attending to state matters. Bayo Onanuga, the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, also dismissed the report. His words: people just tell you all kinds of rumors that have no basis at all. He was in his office yesterday. I was with him. I went to see him. He came to work. Onanuga added that the president could choose to work from home or the office. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll take a very short break. When we return, we'll take more news and head into a news analysis segment where we'll be joined via the telephone with Barrister Fred Nzako, who is a political, national and social affairs commentator. Do kindly stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Still on the world news at 6, the PDP is closely watching the possible political comeback of former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, whose reluctance to declare his intentions for the 2027 elections has kept the party in suspense. Party insiders who spoke recently with correspondents says Jonathan's entry into the race could dramatically reshape the political landscape, particularly if paired with a high-profile running mate such as former Kano State Governor Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso. Well, Jonathan, who led Nigeria between 2010 and 2015, remains an influential figure, especially in the South and Southeast regions. His perceived accessibility across regional lines has made him a potential unifier in an otherwise divided political opposition. According to analysts, Jonathan Kwankwaso's ticket could bridge the North-South political divide while attracting both PDP loyalists and supporters from other opposition parties. Meanwhile, a senior PDP figure has pointed out what he described as a long-standing structural advantage of the northern political bloc in Nigerian elections. He said the House of Fulani political bloc is far more sophisticated than others, that Nigeria is one of the few countries in the world that holds elections on a Saturday, a practice that has significant strategic implications. Most nations conduct elections on weekdays such as Tuesday or Thursday, but on Saturday is basically when Nigeria usually holds its voting pattern, and key political blocs, particularly in the north, hold crucial decision meetings on Fridays. This tradition has given the northern political bloc a distinct advantage as they enter elections armed with the outcomes of these Friday meetings, prepped and ready to execute the strategies. This has been their practice for years and is one of the reasons they have maintained such a stronghold on power. I'm currently being joined via the telephone with Barrister Fred Nzako, who will be giving us his insight into some of the stories read out on the World News at 6. We'll be starting off with the unruly behavior of Comfort Emerson, a passenger today who was bundled out of the airline for actually hurting physically a member of the airline. Barrister Fred Nzako, good evening. Thank you for joining us today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Barrister, let's start off with the situation at the airport. We saw this young lady. Apparently, she's been taken to court and remanded in Kirikiri Prison, Lagos. But articles media aide Paul Ibe is saying, why is the same action not given to K1, the ultimate? Obviously, we saw videos of him talking, standing in front of value jets. Almost he could have actually hurt himself if he did not bend his head at the moment, indicating and also coming out to apologize after extensive deliberations. We also heard leaked audio where he asked if they knew who he was, where he comes from and all that. He has apologized on several occasions. So they're asking the disparity, that is it because Kwam knows the president and Comfort is an ordinary Nigerian with no political leaning?
Well, everything depends on individual perspective.
Okay.
And the way anybody understands the situations. The two situations obviously are not the same. Without holding brief for Palm 1 and his ignominious act, which was likened to a temporary madness, his own needed for people to further understand the circumstances because of the way the whole thing played out. And coupled with the fact that that incident of docking now moved some form of sympathy, even very minor or very, very remote, that if he didn't have enough reflex to dock or to stoop very low, that the wing of the aircraft would have cut off his head.
Exactly.
So with that, with that statement, it now seemed as if there was a counter threat to his own life. So, and that was why he needed further investigation before actions could be taken against him. Yes, and actions have been taken. Unlike this lady's own, that she started the issue from Uyo, and it was very clear and very simple and straightforward to understand that the lady needs mental examination because her action was not normal and not ordinary. And what many Nigerians should do is to even sympathize with her. Yes, she may be given some punishment. Of course, the essence of taking her to Kikri is not because she's an ordinary Nigerian, but the way our law works is that once anybody is taken to court and charged, and the person is his or her plea, the next place for that person is in prison custody. And because the thing happened in Lagos, it's only Kirikiri that has for holding for women, for ladies, that have a women correctional facility. He does not have. It's only for male. And then any other prison, we're talking about Badagry. So naturally, it is in Kirikiri that she will go to. And the thing happened at the airport, which is within the jurisdiction of Kirikiri. So it is normal. Her going there is normal on account of the fact that she was taken to court and arraigned for what she did at the airport. And that does not mean that the investigation has stopped. But because they cannot keep her beyond certain threshold, they can't keep her in detention beyond 24
but don't you think that justice was very swift? Like you rightly said, Barrister Fred Nzako, both incidents are different. In Kwamwan's case, he stood in front of the aircraft, almost like he wanted to prevent the aircraft from moving. The aircraft itself too ought not to have moved because it was not only Kwamwan who was standing under the wing of that aircraft as it was about to take off. There were other airport officials as well. So if there was no caution taken, she would have hurt more than one person. Okay? We also heard arguments. On several occasions, they asked Kwamwan to leave that particular aircraft side, while he continues to call and speak with whomever he wanted to speak with, but he declined. He was calling whomever he wanted to call, kept on insisting that he cannot be asked to deboard to not be part of that aircraft. Well, eventually things were resolved. But if you look at the expediency on how this woman's case was done, I know that she hurt somebody, she was physical, which is different from what in the case of Kwamwan. Would you say that justice was quickly meted out on this young lady, but the same thing was not applied to Kwamwan? I think that's what a lot of Nigerians are talking about in terms of reference.
Nigerians should not be talking like that because the differences, the circumstances are different. Like you said, Kwamwan didn't beat anybody.
Okay.
We saw this lady assaulting and beating that air hostess. You saw this lady assaulting and beating some other, even the security men that came around. You saw this lady even threatening to pick an instrument as a weapon to hit somebody. So it was a completely different scenario. Yes, when one misconducted himself, but this lady's own was close to madness. But it is important to say, Esther, at this point, that Nigerians are under the yoke of psychological trauma since the APC government came to power in 2015. Whether anybody likes to take this or not, that is the fact and that is the truth. And it became terrible under the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Since that subsidy is gone, statement, and since that issue of Naira devaluation and the manipulation of the Naira, and since the issue of Band A, Band B, and the banding, criminal banding of electricity, Nigerians' life has become more threatened on account of policies and actions of the federal government. So many Nigerians have psychological trauma. So many Nigerians have mental challenges that are not being exposed until you see them happening. And the irony of it all is that you will be thinking that it is only the poor people that could become mentally challenged. Even the rich in Nigeria today, because anybody who has the money to fly in an aircraft is not poor, at least, because the person has an option of going through, going by road, which is almost one third of what the person paid for the flight. So flight is ordinarily in every environment supposed to be elitist transport medium. Now you are now seeing exactly the same thing that you see at motor parks are the things you are now seeing at the airports. What does it tell you? Nigerians must think very deeply. What it means is that Nigerian people don't decolo under the government. Nigerian people don't decolo under this government on account of terrible economic policies of the government. And it goes without saying, psychologists will tell you that whenever any government policy on economy and the life of the people becomes very bad, it reflects on the psyche of the people. The statistics have shown that the number of Nigerians that have become mentally challenged increased. Go and find out from all the psychiatric hospitals. The one in Yaba will tell you, the one in Aviation will tell you, and on other locations. The information from National Bureau of Statistics said that Nigerians, the number of people that have become mentally challenged in Nigeria has increased. Yes, you can say that population is increasing, therefore that the number will also correspondingly increase. But the issue remains that it is not because of the increase in population, but the increase in economic hardship. It is driving Nigerians crazy. And that is what you are seeing. This is not the end of. More of this type of incidences will continue to happen, even in places you don't expect them to happen, because the pressure is on everybody. Recently, one Senator Kontangora died in Abuja, and then he went viral. His death, his death went viral. They said Nigeria happened to him. Why? Because from the write-up, that he could not deposit the balance $15,000 required for him to be operated upon and his life saved. Whether that is the totality of the account or what led to his death or not, that write-up sends a signal that both the rich, the poor, the high, the mighty, everybody in Nigeria is suffering one way or the other, directly or indirectly, from misgovernance that we are seeing in Nigeria today.
All right, Barrister Fred, let's move on to other issues as well. So apparently, simultaneously, there was a killing in Benue State, the same year water, where on June 13, more than 200 persons were roasted alive and killed. Now, not just that as well, in Borno State, residents of the community had to flee because terrorists as well came to invade the community, shot sporadically. They actually abducted a schoolgirl, and they also killed some of the soldiers, scores of soldiers. In fact, they killed scores of soldiers, abducted a schoolgirl. Her name is Aisha Mohammed. One would have thought that with what happened in Benue, that there would have been major security presence in most of these regions that seems to be volatile. I'm speaking of either Borno, Benue, Plateau State. They have gone through repeated attacks in their state. Now, in the case of Benue, they had to block the road. They took the corpses of those people and blocked the express road. Barrister Fred Nzako, what is going on?
Also, what is going on is that our security men that are on the front line are very badly stretched. Very badly stretched in the sense that the number is not enough to face the challenges of insecurity in the land. But the worst part of it is that there is manipulation from above. they cannot explain. That manipulation hinders their hands and ties their hands from even engaging in full blast attack against these terrorists. They have been shouting, even some of their commanders have been shouting about these incidents. They have been shouting that somehow even their movement is being leaked to terrorists. They have been shouting that there's a lot of mole in their system. They have been shouting because some of the people that were said to be repented and reintegrated into the army and into the system are truly not repented. Rather, they are instead of repenting, they are pretending. These are pretenders that have deceived the system and they are now recycled into the system. They are tired because they don't understand where the problem is coming from. And some of their commanders and their leaders are even saying that even while the men are in the line of duty, sacrificing their life under the threat of insecurity, they are not even receiving the commensurate welfare they are supposed to receive at the back end. So, with all of this, how do you think that the problems will be solved? When people are being accused of making profit, financial profit out of insecurity, when people are being accused that they are making profitable, they have turned security into insecurity into economic venture for their private gains, how do you think it will end? And that is why when they accuse the government of insincerity, it is not that they are accusing Mr. President, but because anytime you mention government, the eye of the people will go to the office of Mr. President because the ball stops on his table, and he is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But the men that are supposed to be commanded by the commander-in-chief, who are supposed to report to the commander-in-chief, are they doing the right thing? Security experts will tell you that they are afraid that the right things are not being done. And that is why time and time again we continue to lament about the security in the land without having a closure to some of these problems. How can anybody believe that over almost 15 years down the line, we are still singing the same song of insecurity?
All right, Barrister Fred Nzako, let's look at the situation about the president's health status and that of Godswill Akpabio. So we heard reports that Godswill Akpabio is currently receiving treatment somewhere in London, that he's not been available for quite a while. Benga Daniel, however, came to speak on behalf of Godswill Akpabio by saying that all of those information is being mischievous and not true. Simultaneously, there are talks that the president has not really been available in a couple of state functions. Bayo Nanuga has come out to dispute that statement or utterance, said people are just going about with unverified information. You recall that the president, during the last digital media summit, he told the young persons who converge there to verify before they amplify. And so Bayo Nanuga actually reiterated that these are the kind of information percolating out there where there is no verification before they amplify it. However, Barrister Fred Nzako, the fear is this. We saw what happened with late Muhammadu Buhari. There were initial talks that he was ill, critically ill, and quickly the presidency came and debunked it. The media aide came and said there is nothing of such. The same thing too happened with Taoreed Lagbaja. We had heard that he had actually passed on. He was in a terrible situation. In fact, there were two. One said he was terribly ill. Another one said he had passed on. The presidency came to debunk it. We even heard stories that the president spoke with him that he was doing okay. All for the president to swear an acting chief of army staff before we heard about the confirmation of Taoreed Lagbaja's death. So would you blame anyone for not believing anything that comes from the presidency when it has anything to do with any of their health status?
There's a terrible culture among government officials in Nigeria, and that culture is the culture of lies, culture of falsehood, and culture of propaganda. I have tried to study other federations around the world, especially among the developed world, whether it is part and parcel of their system. And I found out that that's not the truth. And that's not the situation. That countries are led by people whose life is like an open book. And the very moment you assume position of authority, the people you are leading will know you in and out, through and through. And that is why sometimes they will even tell you about who your grandparents were, whether they migrated from Germany to US and the time they migrated, and whether your wife, your sister was born by another woman. Or the life of every leader is like an open book, but not in Africa. Not in Africa, where everything is shrouded in secrecy. The government secret file is more than the open files. The confidentiality in government is too much that you hardly will understand what they are doing. Donald Trump, current American president, when he had an issue a few weeks ago, he just made it open to American people that this is what was troubling him and that he was getting fined. The man before him, the former president before Donald Trump,
that's Biden.
Joe Biden, when he had issues, he told the American people. The UK, the same thing. When the British Prime Minister has any any health challenge, he will tell the British people. And if it is the one that will warrant quarantine, he will go on quarantine. And that is where leadership should be, because you are leading people. If you don't want your life to be known by the people you are leading, then don't lead them. It's not by force. You don't force yourself on people and begin to lead them in secrecy and in falsehood.
All right.
To the extent that even when like the man you mentioned, even when he had already died, government was still denying and was saying that he was was that not an embarrassing situation?
It was.
Eventually,
they even said there is no room for acting chief of army staff. I remember that.
Meanwhile, Mr. President went and installed an acting one, and then confirmed him thereafter. I tell you that is not the way to govern. And these are some of the things that retard the development of the country. When everything is shrouded in secrecy, our budget, our implementation, our population, everything about the life of and actions of people in authority, not only at the federal level, is shrouded in secrecy.
All right. Barrister, before I let you go, because we've run out of time, let's go into the political scene. It's about the Jonathan factor. All right. Now, the Jonathan factor is this. A certain factions or certain groups within the PDP want Jonathan to come back because they feel that constitutionally he has no choice but to do only one term. Another group of persons also want the presidential aspirant under the Labour Party in 2023, Mr. Peter Obi. Now, there are also talks that Jonathan, who was a former boss to Peter Obi, that's the only person that can influence Peter Obi to drop his presidential ambition. You recall, I think last week, Friday thereabouts, or Thursday, maybe Kachuku came out and said that the intention of the Northern Bloc is to introduce Jonathan, and that Jonathan supposedly said Peter Obi should work along with him. He would give him a ministerial slot if he drops his ambition. Now, we're hearing that while the ADC is courting Jonathan, the PDP is also courting him, that there is a tendency that he may actually go with the pressure, but that he's afraid that they could begin or reopen the condition, that is the probe into his wife concerning the Niger Delta bombings before he conceded in 2015. There were talks that it was linked to him or his wife. How would you react to this development?
There are so many backdoor permutations by politicians and political analysts and observers.
Okay.
A lot of which are not correct, and a lot of which are not truth.
Okay.
And a lot of which are not confirmed. Those who are saying Mr. Jonathan did this and Mr. Jonathan did that are only working out their own personal intentions or thoughts. Jonathan has not come out to tell anybody that he was going to run. In 2023, the same rumor was carried up and down. And Jonathan eventually came out and said that he was not interested.
Okay, so why is he not saying anything now, Barrister? I mean, everyone is talking about it, but he's been mum.
Jonathan had said so. He had said so that he was not interested.
No, Barrister, this was before these northern blocks decided to continue to push on for him.
It is simply because Nigerians do not believe their politicians. When they say yes, sometimes they may mean no. When they say no, sometimes they may mean yes. They will have yes in their mind and will tell you no outside. And that is why, because Nigerians don't believe them, even when they say they are not interested, Nigerians will feel that they are still interested, but they don't want to announce it now. But it is very clear and obvious. If anybody is saying that Mr. Jonathan's presence will make Mr. Peter Obi to drop his ambition, the person does not know what he's talking about. Mr. Peter Obi has said emphatically that he will present himself one more time for serving the people if Nigerian people elect him as their president. He did not mince words about it. He did not at all. And why he said so is that he knows what to do. He is eager, willing, and ready to rescue Nigeria and rechart this country on a path of sanity, progress, and growth. And he has said that he will achieve all that within 4 years. He did not say that he will solve all Nigeria's problems, but he will redirect the country on a trajectory of development.
Barrister, so why is it that some sections do not believe that one term? Why don't they believe that proposal?
They are not believing because they are judging Mr. Peter Obi by their own standard. Obi is a man of integrity whose yes is yes and whose no is no.
Barrister, can you vouch for any politician like that? You know, Obi had made statements in the past and changed his mind.
I can tell you, I have not spoken like this about any other person. I have not. But when I tell you about somebody that I have studied and I'm telling you what I know, Mr. Peter Obi said 4 years is enough, and he meant it, and he will do it. It does not take 100 years. Murtala Muhammad spent only 6 months, and his impact is felt in Nigeria up to today. Only 6 months. Only. So any man who understands what he has come to do in government, who in 4 years would chart a clear course for the country to move. Nigeria is not difficult to be directed. The problem we have is that we have leaders who don't have the interests of the people at heart. Right. That's all. They are more interested in themselves, in their cronies, in their parties, in their supporters, than on the life of the ordinary Nigerian that should matter in their daily policies and programs. And Mr. Peter Obi is completely different. Let me just give you one example, Esther. When we say that Obi was governor in Anambra, executive governor for 8 years, he does not have a plot of land of his own in the whole of Anambra State capital up to today. He has challenged anybody. People have even gone to look up all the documents of land in Anambra, and they found none attached to Obi. When a man like that tells you something, Esther, you must believe him. Can you say the same thing about others? I don't want to mention anything about the man about today, because if I say that, Nigerians will want to throw away their radio if they are listening to us. They will throw away their radio. They will say, why is Fred spoiling their evening? But I would want to tell our listeners that Mr. Peter Obi is that man who is ready to rechart this country on the proper course, and he wants to present himself. If it is now left to Nigerians to come around him and build a future around him, because an Iroko that stands in the forest is there for all the birds to perch on and have shelter. Mr. Peter Obi is political Iroko of Nigeria. It is left for us as Nigerians to stand him, ensure that enemies of progress don't pull him down, so that he will provide shelter for all the birds that are roving around in confusion in the current Nigerian economic situation.
Barrister, let me ask you finally, is there any provision in the Constitution for Jonathan to run one more time?
There was an argument which I think was settled with the 2022 Electoral Act. There was an argument that Jonathan had done 2 terms. When by the time he exhausted the tenure of Yaradua, that was one should be seen as 1 term, and then by the time he won the election in 2015, that should be seen as the 2nd term. But that argument, it even affected some judgments of courts prior to 2022 Electoral Act. But at the end of the day, an amendment of the Constitution with the Electoral Act has cleared that aspect, and they said that should not be seen as a tenure, because it affected only some deputy governors. For example, if if Akero Luda died on those states, I hear that Iwa exhausted his tenure. If you go to that argument, I hear that Iwa will have only one term. Suntai in Taraba, who died, then the man that took over from him exhausted his tenure and then still had to run for 2 other terms.
You're referring to Dambaba Suntai or something. Dambaba Suntai that died via the helicopter crash that left him brain dead.
Exactly.
Okay.
And later managed his health for a very long time before he eventually
passed on.
Passed on. So eventually that has been resolved. That will not amount to the tenure of that fellow, that he only exhausted the tenure of the man that was elected. Because look at the fact of election of the people and not who has finished that term. The time you stand for election, you cannot stand for election more than twice.
Okay.
But if through natural happenstance you exhaust the tenure of your principal, that will not be counted because you didn't stand for an election.
So in other words, there's a way to go through that particular loophole for him to come back and run a second time.
On that note, President Jonathan still has opportunity to stand the election again in Nigeria for the office of the president. But
right.
I can tell you from very authoritative source that President Jonathan has not asked anybody to support him for that office. They are only making mouth, trying to disillusion Nigerians against Mr. Peter Obi. The Nigerians know better, and they know who their leader is, and their leader is Peter Gregory Obi.
Barrister Fred Nzako, thank you so much for giving us your time in the World News at 6. I sincerely do appreciate your input.
Many thanks, Esther.
All right. And that's a wrap on the World News right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. The Evening Rush will coming up very soon. Do kindly stay with us. Good evening.